All right, you guys, we are officially in March. I've said this before and I'll say it again, but I really do think that March is probably the most interesting, exciting months of 2025 because we have so much going on this month. And as we're recording this, it's now officially Venus retrograde. Actually, is it based on the time? Is it Venus retrograde?
I think we're there. Like, we're nearly there. I'll check.
I know. Actually, no. 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6:36 my time PM. So no, we are not officially in Venus retrograde. We've got a few hours left of like no retrograde planets, which I've been really soaking this up. I've said this in past episodes. It's felt so nice to like finally be in a 1 week of Q1 where we have no planets in retrograde. But March, it's I feel like that sigh, that like exhale of breath and air is how I'm feeling about heading into this month. But what about you? You've said you're excited, so I'm ready to like dive into that with you.
Yeah, I say that now. I'm like, sure, if you like pull me on like March 28th, I'd be like, okay, I'm done now. Like, let's be done. But I think that this month is
end.
Yeah, this month's going to be transformative for us all in like a way that we couldn't have selected or lined up for ourselves, but the cosmos were like, okay, this is going to be the month, you know? And I think there's major themes we're going to talk about that we need to pay attention to this month to make sure that we're not getting lost in the world, you know, just getting lost in general. I feel like there's going to be a lot of planetary movement happening beyond eclipses, and eclipses are already major portals of change that we're just going to have to make sure we're grounding ourselves, you know, with like that first eclipse we're going to talk about today being in Virgo. Like, it's begging for us to ground into our energy and to just really be with it. And I think it's going to set us forward on a path that we're all going to need to be on.
Yeah, I mean, even people who don't follow astrology closely, it's like I am having conversations with these people who are like these themes of like this even nodal axis, right? This like Pisces Virgo nodal axis that we're in right now. And specifically like the themes of the Pisces new moon that we just had. And in 2 weeks, I mean, we are officially in the eclipse portal window. Like as of now, it has started. We are in the 2-week period before the, you know, very first eclipse of 2025. And this is when we start to feel it. We start to feel like the amplification of some of this eclipse energy in our life, but like it is so present in so many people's lives. I mean, just this theme of like surrender and surrendering control. I mean, some of Virgo's tendencies in a lower expression can be this like perfectionism, some controlling tendencies, you know, being overly critical. And it's like, there's such a ask for, and not even an ask, because eclipse season is like, you're doing it whether you want to or not type of thing. Like we're kind of forced to just be in this space of deep surrender to, and releasing and letting go of these maybe tendencies, Virgo tendencies that we have of perfectionism, of control, of, you know, criticalness, which like I'm feeling, hello, this eclipse is in my first house. So I'm like, oh boy, this will be good.
I know, that's like so interesting when you have a first house eclipse. Like I had that during the Scorpio Taurus axis a couple years ago, and I had just started to really dive into astrology. No coincidence there that like, oh, it's going to eclipse like your entire life. So you're just going to figure it out. And so that was like my draw to astrology. So I feel you, and it's going to be okay. I've been marked safe from a first house eclipse.
Okay, good.
Many times, so it'll be okay. But yeah, I'm thinking about what you're talking about, surrender, right? And it's like there's this divinity of surrender that exists when you bring in Pisces. So no matter what, even though this first eclipse is in Virgo, the opposite of that, the North Node, the collective, you know, destiny where we're headed is in Pisces. So we're headed toward this place of like very much divinity, dreaming, surrender in that way. But Virgo's like holding on really tight. And so it's like, how can we actually balance that feeling without going crazy? And I think it's not about surrender like a lot of people think of it, at least I do, where it's just like, okay, fine, I give up. Like, no, it's not like that kind of like flippant surrender, but it's kind of like, I think of it as like a stillness surrender and just like being with yourself a little bit more and like kind of pausing and taking a breath. Like it's very yogic in nature if you think about it. Like I'm not a huge yogi by any stretch, but I know the principles of like, don't react. Just kind of take a moment, you know, and that I think what this season is really asking for versus I have to work harder, I have to be perfect, I have to do more, is to say, how can I just be with this for a little bit longer, 30 seconds more before I react, you know?
Yeah. You know, anytime that we talked about this in like our 2025 episode, but anytime that we, you know, the nodes shift into new signs, it really is like this new series of lessons that we are here to learn. And so this really is our opportunity to really deepen into the lessons of Pisces and Virgo. We had our first Pisces eclipse in September of 2024. And now we're experiencing our first Virgo eclipse on this axis, this nodal axis of Pisces Virgo. So, we really are kind of stepping into this like new area in our chart. Wherever you have Pisces and Virgo in your chart are really these areas of life that there are going to be some lessons coming up. Again, we talked about this in our early 2025 astrology episode, so feel free to also go back to that episode as well, just to kind of deepen into some of this energy in a different way. But like eclipses really are these like powerful portals of change and transformation. They really are pushing us on this soul level. They're very karmic in that way, that whatever needs to be released to further our evolution as a soul will be released. What's happening during this time is meant for us. And it's not just letting go, it's also new beginnings. And that's kind of a little bit of the difference in the way that we like to work with as astrologers, with like the solar eclipse versus the lunar eclipse, because the solar eclipse does kind of represent these like new beginnings, chapters starting. We had our first chapter beginning in September of 24, and now we've got our first lunar eclipse on this axis. So there's something happening here in this storyline of surrendering, letting go, releasing. And it really does align so well with Pisces, because that's really what Pisces is. As the last sign of the zodiac, it is like oneness, like complete surrendered, connected to God, source, universe energy, and just connected to self and your intuition, and just letting go of the plans, the details, the need to just control and hold on so tightly to things. Like this month, look at what you are holding on too tight to, where you have been holding on too tight to something, whether it be a relationship, because hello, Venus retrogrades here. Like we are learning lots of lessons around relationships and love and just our self-worth and our values. But perhaps like, is there something you're clinging on so tightly to outside of you and have really attached yourself to out of like, this is what I need to feel worthy and to feel secure with myself? Like, all of these themes are coming up with Venus retrograde, but like at the same time with this eclipse, it's like something's going to come in our way to say, let go, stop holding on so tight. This is not needed. And this is not aligned with how you are here to evolve in this state of your life.
Also, yeah, and the best we can do is to truly be present with these energies. We can't predict them, we can't manipulate them, and we certainly can't figure out exactly what's going to happen. So like Keelie said, we're in this pre-eclipse portal right now. Well, when you're listening to this, it will be the time for the eclipse, for the first lunar eclipse in Virgo. And, then we have another one at the end of the month, which will be the solar eclipse, which will be a final one in Aries, which we'll do an episode on because that energy is so different. And then we're in what's called the windows in between. My one of my favorite astrologers, Danielle Page, always says like, we're in the windows in between. It's like this 2-week period of just kind of like, hold on tight, because like this is where your life changes. And it's not always bad and it's not always good. It just kind of is what it is. Like eclipses are these really powerful portals. But beyond that, between now and September, we have this 6-month window that's going to be where we're echoing and like seeing the mirror of what exactly transpired at these eclipses and what's going to happen again, like another new beginning. So it's going to be a really important time for us all to like be in these energies. And then not to mention, like Keelie said, March is full of other planetary changes. And so we've got a lot of Pisces energy right now in March, where we've got Neptune at that final degree, 29 degrees of Pisces before it moves into Aries. And we've got Saturn kind of finishing up its little trek through Pisces as well before it moves into Aries in May. And so we're full of a lot of big planetary energy here in this month that is going to be asking us, how are we showing up? How are we dreaming? How are we letting go? And then Virgo on the 14th is going to be like, hold on tight, like everything's going to be fine. And it's asking us like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? So it's a kind of conflicting energy, these eclipses sometimes. And that's actually really important, because once you can feel the duality of energy, then you can pick which way you're wanting to go. And like Keelie said, this is the time to kind of like loosen the grip. Another astrologer says this is like the beginning of a metamorphosis. And it's a one-way street. She's like, once the caterpillar decides to go into the cocoon, it can't be like, oh, just kidding, I want to be a caterpillar again. Like, you are going to transform. And this is what these collective eclipses do for us all.
Who was that astrologer?
Pam Gregory said it's a one-way street of metamorphosis. And I think that she's absolutely right. And you think of that chrysalis, right? Poor caterpillar has to say bye. okay. I'm completely surrendering here, and giving that full faith into it. And I think that's what Neptune this month is also asking us to do before it changes, but it's asking for this surrender. And, I don't know if the caterpillar just does this naturally without, any thought to it. I've never interviewed a caterpillar, but it really, it's like, do they just know to do it? Whereas like humans, we kind of are like, resistance, no, I shouldn't do it. I shouldn't do it. Like we kind of zigzag back and forth, into like, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. And whereas a caterpillar, I think it's just like this natural thing that they know they have to do and they go into it. But we pick to be humans this time. So we have to put a little bit extra effort into our own surrender.
I love that. Taking a step back too, and just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a timeline here for y'all to work with, is this eclipse specifically, this Virgo lunar eclipse, this is going to be happening on March 13th at 11:55 p.m. Pacific time. And March 14th at 1:55 a.m. Central Time. So depending on where you are, I mean, this is smack dab, middle of the night. A lot of times when we talk about, full moon ceremonies and new moon ceremonies, I mean, if you've been in our world for a bit or you've been following different astrologers, you've probably heard that when it comes to like eclipses, we really don't like to do any sort of like specific strong intention setting and like major release ceremonies, because it's just like the energy of eclipses are so potent, you guys. A lot of times, the reason we get to work with these new moons and full moons is to kind of direct our life in a direction that we're really feeling called towards in that period of time that we're in life. And so, each month we get this opportunity to set an intention and then release not what's not serving us, like with the new moons and the full moons. But when we're working with an eclipse energy, because the change is coming and because it's like so far beyond the ego, right? Like our ego might think that it knows what it wants and like, this is where I need to go. But like on a soul level, is where we need to be headed, are the lessons that we need to be learning. Are they like, is our ego even aware of those, right? And so when the ego is trying to set intentions and like release a bunch of things, like there might be a disconnect between actually like what do we need to know for us to evolve in this chapter of life. And it could be completely different than like what the ego thinks it wants or what it thinks it needs at this time. And that's why it's just a little bit of an opportunity to, again, let go. Specifically, this eclipse is so much about letting go of just like the need to plan, the need to prepare, the need to like be all in the details and the weeds. But like for this specifically and just eclipses in general, there's no need. It's almost just like witnessing what life is bringing your way. And that's the beauty of an eclipse, is we just get to witness and be these like observers and go, oh, okay. Maybe it doesn't feel good at the time. Maybe whatever change is like coming our way doesn't feel good, but we can be able to just relax and find peace in that. We know whatever is coming our way is for our greater good, for our higher good, for our higher self.
Absolutely. And I think it's really interesting, like when you're in a meditation, right? And like a lot of meditation teachers will say like, oh, if you notice like a thought coming in that's like not related to your meditation, like kind of acknowledge it, put it in a bubble, be like, I'll come back for you later. And I think that's like a really great way to navigate eclipse season. It's not necessarily like, I'm going to journal this and I'm going to figure out why I feel this way today. It's not, it probably won't reveal itself so quickly. It's something you probably, like a bigger theme that you probably have to work through and maybe tease out a bit and just kind of become aware of. But an eclipse season will definitely show you those things. And then not to mention, we've got Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, two planets kind of finalizing their time in the final degree of the zodiac, or the final sign of the zodiac, along with eclipses. So like this is the time that you're going to be getting a lot of data from your world, from your life, from your relationships, from everywhere. And it's great because it's so important we see it, but it doesn't mean like you have to tackle it on the night of the 13th, up in the middle of the night with your crystals. Probably not. Actually, just get a good night's sleep. You deserve it. And it's a good time for that. And it's like really interesting too, because like I think of what will Virgo want me to do at this time? Like what Virgo energy tendencies will come online for me and be like, I have to have a plan. I have to execute this properly. I have to do this. I'm not working hard enough. I need to be better. Like all of these little themes, I can even feel them popping up now for me, which we all know Virgo makes me sweat. So I'm like, oh God, a Virgo eclipse. Like it's loud, even though I don't have any personal or generational planets in Virgo, I'm still feeling that energy. So if you're looking at your chart going, well, I've got nothing in Pisces, Virgo, I'm fine. we all feel eclipses. This isn't like an I opt out type of thing. I mean, I'm sure you can put on headphones and just disassociate for a couple of weeks, but something's going to reveal itself to you at this time or become a lot more clear for you. And, you can look at the house that this falls in your chart and just kind of get an idea of like, okay, what area of life might I feel this in? And then look, of course, to where Pisces is. So you can kind of look at the balance of like, what am I being asked to let go of? What am I asked to step into? And just kind of work with those general themes. And we have house episodes so that you can listen to that about the houses and the zodiac signs. So if you want to piece it together in a more deep way, you certainly can.
Virgo, it rules your 11th house. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're a Scorpio rising. So, and Virgo rules my first house because I'm a Virgo rising. So, looking at, we always say, and as Nicole just said too, we all have all the signs in our chart, whether we have specific planetary aspects in those signs or not, we all have all the signs. And those signs are going to show up in like different areas of our life. Those energies, those energetic qualities are going to show up in different areas of our life. And so what you can kind of think about is look at what house Virgo falls in your chart, specifically 23 degrees Virgo. We use the Placidus system in this podcast, and we are actually going to go ahead and provide a link for you inside of the show notes that can help you figure out exactly which house this lunar eclipse is going to fall in, where specifically 23 degrees Virgo is falling in your own chart. So use that as kind of your way of figuring out where is this eclipse going to be showing up? What area of life is it going to be showing up for me? And also you can think about it too as this is the area of life where you're going to need to surrender some level of control. Nicole actually just looked hers up and realized it's the 10th house, not the 11th house. So
like, great. Lovely.
And that's the other thing I want to say too, is things to know. Again, we all will feel eclipses, but there is a lot stronger of maybe an external impact when you have an eclipse that is located in your first, fourth, seventh, or 10th, because those houses specifically are directly related to, I think the physical body, think the home and the family, your one-on-one relationships, partnerships, marital partnerships, business partnerships, and then your career. So a lot of those are really big themes if we think about life. So like that's why sometimes if you have an eclipse happening in that house, you can feel the impact in maybe a deeper way than maybe you would if, like, for example, you were experiencing it in like the 2nd and 8th, which was what I was experiencing the whole Aries Libra eclipse, for the past cycle that we were just in with the nodal axis in those two signs. So that being said, that's something for you guys just to take into consideration. One, look at what house this eclipse is falling into. Is it falling into the 1st, 4th, 7th, or 10th houses? And is it also making any connections to any of your personal planets? So specifically your sun, your moon, your rising sign as well, and then Mercury, Venus, or Mars. Those personal aspects of you will feel also on like in a much different and maybe deeper way than maybe some of your other planets.
Yeah, for sure. And I shouldn't say like, oh, great, the 10th house. I just was like expecting an 11th house eclipse. So I was like, oh, it's the 10th house. I'm like, well, who knows what's going to happen? I'm just like ready for the month to be what it has to be, because that is life, right? Like we said, we can't predict this. And something interesting to think about too is like, okay, if we look at the traditional axis of Pisces and Virgo, like they're opposites of each other, they're kind of ruling like the subconscious, that like area of our mind that is like more unseen or unaccessed, like with Pisces. And then Virgo rules a lot of our health and our day-to-day routines, and also the earth. Like I always say, Virgo is big witch energy. And so I wonder like how beautiful we can make this eclipse season, like connecting more to the earth a little bit, because it's like, how are we relating to the land around us? Everything around us is so beautiful. And I think it's kind of like a perfect time, especially, in most of Northern America, it will be the beginning of spring. And so we can really see this own metamorphosis of nature happening at the same time, begging us to connect. Like it's like greening up and flowers are blooming and things are happening and birds are chirping. It's just like asking us to further kind of get out of that mental, mind that Virgo can sometimes trap us in, and like, hey, look at all this stuff that's happening without any work. It just happens, like clockwork. And so I think it's really beautiful. And I've also heard a lot of people talk about, a lot of astrologers talk about the fact that health is going to be a major focus for us over the next 18 months. So through July 2026, because Virgo and Pisces really is important to our health. So, it's never a bad time to actually pay attention to what you're consuming mentally, physically, emotionally, how you're tending to your own body, like what you're doing. This doesn't mean you have to start like a crazy workout routine, but like walk around, move your body, stretch a little bit, take a deep breath. There's little things we can do to tend to our health in many ways, whatever health looks like for you.
How ironic. I just started working with a fitness and nutrition coach.
I know, I was going to say this is perfect.
This is like literally in my first house of the physical body.
Yeah.
And how wild is that? Like really focusing on your health and stuff. That being said, every sign has a low expression and a high expression. Some of these like lower expression themes with like Virgo that we've been talking about so far, which is kind of like what we're going to be asked to let go of are, the control, the perfectionism. You talked about just like a lot of like chatter in the head. The Virgo can be just like this busybody, this go, go, go energy, like always working, always doing something, kind of a little bit of like a hustle mentality. Like, where is that not serving you, right? And also, how can we step into some of the more higher expression energies of Virgo, which, as you suggested, nurturing your body, caring for your body, focusing on your well-being. We know like mindfulness is so important to our health and our well-being. Like Virgo is also the sign of our wellness, of, taking care of our body with the routines and the rituals that we have in place. So this is also a really beautiful time to put in place some rituals and routines that really support you and nurture you. Virgo is this beautiful, feminine, grounded, earthy energy. So like, let's really take some time to connect with the earth, not be running around, maybe, caught up in the chatter in our head and not really taking time to just be present. Like, let's practice presence during this time. Again, anytime we are in an eclipse season, it is not about trying to hold on so tight and just getting caught up in the chaos and the confusion of it all, but like being present and just being this like bystander, this witness to what is happening around you. Like, if there's one thing that you can take away from that and really like allow to be the leading energy of this month, it is to just practice presence, practice mindfulness, so that when the chaos and maybe some confusion does come up, not that it's all going to be bad, right? But like, just sometimes with change, it can be confusing. Maybe you're just kind of stuck in this a little bit of like, there's just a lot going on. And like, how do I really ground myself? Have some routines and rituals already in place, ready to go for you to come back to when things start to feel a little bit messy.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a great time to also evaluate like how much of my information, of my thoughts, or all these things am I outsourcing, right? Like, I'm not saying don't watch the news ever, but like if you spend every single day tuning into the news to know how you should feel that day, this month is going to feel really hard. It's not going to be easy. But if you actually, maybe you tune into the news, you figure out what's going on in the world, because some people that is very important to them. But then you go put your feet in the grass and you breathe. You take a couple deep breaths and you actually like reconnect to yourself and to the earth. This is what we're talking about. It's like about this beautiful balance. I will say, don't let this month pass you by. Don't let this month blow so fast or so furious that you're not tending to your own creativity. Because Pisces energy, which we're still in Pisces season for a bit longer here, it is so intuitive. It's so dreamy. It's so creative. Like, obviously we can get stuck in the lower vibrations too sometimes, but if we can pay attention to our dreams and like the consciousness activating in our own mind and like the intuition that we're likely feeling right now, it's a powerful time. And so when I think of like this axis of Virgo Pisces, it's kind of like Virgo's yelling like, do something with this, like make sense of it. And then Pisces is like, just keep dreaming. And it's like, well, you can do both. And then that makes this month like supercharged for you because there's a lot of this energy. And looking at the chart for the actual eclipse day, Mars will actually be in a nice trine to the eclipse. And so that means trine energy, which is triangular. It's a very flowy energy. It's a nice aspect. It's a friendly aspect, if you will. And because of that, it's going to give us that energy to flow, to actually flow like Pisces wants us to, even though we're in the eclipse. And so I think we can actually finally, since Mars went direct on February 23rd from being in its retrograde, we can use that energy to like push us forward in a way that doesn't allow us to just like, oh, you know what, I'll just pick all of this back up in mid-April. No, don't do that. Don't put down your dreams. Don't put down your creativity. Just keep on working through it and notice the things as they float in like bubbles that are presenting you with new information, and just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, I really loved what you just shared there because, I think so much of this conversation, we're like, surrender, let go, just be present. And I'm like, hold up. Let's not spend this whole month, like doing nothing, right? Like that is absolutely not what we're saying, because it actually can be a really exciting time to take some inspired action. And so this is where we really have an opportunity to intuit within. Where are we being asked to maybe just like surrender and let go a bit? For example, maybe there's, with Venus retrograde, a relationship or some aspect of your life that's feeling confusing, okay? Because with all this retrograde energy, with Venus retrograde, with Mercury retrograde, mental energy, relationship energy, there might be things that are confusing because retrograde energy is all about reflecting back. It's not a whole lot of like moving forward, right? There's just things that we need to reflect upon, things we need to really sift through, like understand a little bit deeper in a different way, just kind of see kind of how we need to navigate our way forward through like reflecting first, right? So with this retrograde energy, there might be this like kind of confusing energy. If you're feeling confused, if you're feeling foggy or fuzzy around something, that's not this eclipse season isn't the time to like take action on that and like let me just charge forward and shake shit up and like if you're feeling confusion and fogginess, take that as maybe a sign to like just sit and reflect and maybe like don't take any hard action right now. But there will be things that the universe is going to throw your way because it's eclipse season, and it's going to shake shit up and it's going to make some things happen in your life. That is kind of almost going to feel like things might be a bit forced upon you, and you're like, this is happening and this is what I need to like also let go of, right? Like it's happening. I don't need to grip too tightly. I don't need to try to, hold on so tightly to something that it's clearly like this needs to be let go of at this time. Like this is being released from my life and it's completely out of my control, and I'm not going to hold on too tight for it. And so I want to speak too, because Nicole talked a little bit about some of the connection with Mars. There's opposition to Saturn with this eclipse season. And that opposition to Saturn does mean that there might be some challenge, there might be some discomfort, there are some bigger lessons for us to learn. As we know, Saturn is that grumpy professor vibe. It's bringing us lessons. It's like, do the work, right? Like we are being asked to do the work right now. This is not a time to get lazy and just, sit around. Again, it's like doing the work. Like the work might be to surrender. The work might be to let go of something that you haven't been able to let go of before, and it may be just kind of forced upon you. And it's like, this is really hard for me. This is really uncomfortable for me to let go, but like there's no other choice at this point. Like this needs to happen in this chapter of life. And at the same time, when it comes to like the taking the action and like the really positive energy and connections that this eclipse is making to Mars and also Uranus, it's a time where we can problem solve a bit. It's like, okay, doors have just shut. What is next? And with Uranus and Mars, you have the energy to problem solve, come up with some new solutions, and then like take action and move forward. Right? That is really what is happening during this eclipse season is, okay, there's a challenge. I'm being forced to let go, have to do the work here, surrender to that. Doors are closing. What's the next step? Let me problem solve a bit here and let me take the inspired action that's feeling really aligned. And this is why we really need to be connected to our intuition, be present, because at the same time, it's like not acting from this confusion, messy place, but like taking action from a really aligned place when we do feel clear about what that is.
Yeah, and with the Pisces influence that we're experiencing right now, like we have the possibility to feel the weight of the world. We really do. Like it's a very humanitarian based sign. And so, something I would encourage you to do is like, yeah, feel your things, feel your feelings, feel human, feel connected to the other, but do not let it stop you from doing what you need to do, especially if you've got the eclipse happening in your first, fourth, seventh, or 10th houses. These are highly personal to you. And especially if it's conjunct or touching personal planets for you, like this is about you. And while the weight of the world might feel heavy, if you ignore you, you're never going to be able to show up to be that amazing humanitarian and one consciousness with the world that Pisces is asking us to step into. And so it's like this beautiful, delicate balance of make sure you don't lose your sense of humanity, but also don't get so stuck that you can't move forward, because that's not helpful to you or to anybody else.
Yeah. And one thing too that we'll just point out as well is when you're looking at the specific degrees of your personal planets, maybe you don't have a personal planet at exactly 23 degrees Virgo, but if you do have planets that are between 18 to 28 degrees in Virgo, and also Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces, those are all going to be really important placements that even if it's not in Virgo, but it's in one of those other three signs, this is still a very significant eclipse for those aspects of you between 18 to 28 degrees in those signs.
Yeah, and what I would suggest is if you're looking at your chart and you're going, oh my gosh, that's me. Like I have all these things. Okay, perfect. Now make the action plan for how are you going to ground into this? How are you going to be steady, solid, stable? Watch the feelings come in, observe them, not be reactive, and just really tend to whatever you need at this time, because this is the ask, this is the call. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is the sign to do what you need to do, and to, not only just survive this eclipse season. And by the way, these eclipses happen every single year, so we've all survived so many of them. But maybe like live and enjoy yourself through them, and to actually feel momentous on the other side, even if it felt uncomfortable. Like Keelie said, like Saturn's going to be there. It might feel a little bit difficult, but it feels really good when you're like at the gym and you pick up that heavier weight and you can like do the reps and you're like, yeah, I could do that. That's what Saturn's here for. It's like next time you go to pick up those weights in September, you're going to be like, whoa, I'm like, that's 15 pounds more than I was lifting in March. Like how amazing, because you're putting in the work now. So it will pay off, and there will be something that will be so much more clear on the other side of eclipse season. You're going to be like, oh, it all had to happen like that so that this could be, like, whatever that is,
Yeah. And be sure to go listen to our Venus retrograde episode if not already, because again, that is all happening at the same time in March. I mean, yeah, that plus Mercury retrograde, plus the eclipses, plus we are the spring equinox, right? We're starting the brand new cycle of a new zodiac cycle, starting with Aries season. So, there's new beginnings here too, you guys. And yeah, as Nicole kind of shared in the beginning, it can be an exciting energy. It really can. And I always embrace growth. I think as spiritual girlies, astrology girlies, like we love astrology because we can better understand ourselves. We can be living in awareness as the cosmos are, working in different ways. And that's also the power of astrology. We don't have to move through this eclipse season feeling completely blind to what's happening, but we can understand. And as things come up, we know where we need to kind of do some of the work. And we know also where there are going to be opportunities for us to, grow through some of the challenges that maybe come up.
Yeah, and as many WTF or OMG moments you experience this month, just remember, get outside and connect to the earth a little bit more. That's what Virgo's begging us to do in her highest octave.
Yes.
She's like, just be with me. Like, I am here to hold you. And, that's a beautiful aspect that we can all count on, at least this eclipse cycle right now, to just be with it. And, I feel like that's exactly what I plan to do. I'm just going to be like, oh, whenever I feel lost and whatever, I'm going to be in the garden. I'm just going to go outside and I'm going to be like, green, something green. Let me find that greenery. And then all will be well in the world.
Yeah. Decide what's your personal garden. Okay. For me, maybe it's already the thing. I'm like, okay, Virgo, my first house. I've got this fitness and nutrition coach. Maybe that's something I can really deepen into, is just like really focusing, not in a, controlling way or like a perfectionist way, right? Like but like really like understanding like what is a, way to nourish my body in a way that feels good. So decide what is going to be your garden for this month.
Absolutely. And do let us know, send us a message on Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're following us. We so appreciate you tuning in to this eclipse episode about our first lunar eclipse in Virgo this year. And we will have a whole other episode for you shortly on the Aries solar eclipse at the end of March. Like Keelie said, our episodes on Venus retrograde are live, and you can tune into all of the more educational series if you're wanting to deepen your astrological understanding. But we're so happy you're here, those astrology girls. If you think this episode could benefit a friend, please do share it. Tag us on social media. We're at Those Astrology Girls on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And we'd love to connect with you in a reading if that's something you're interested in. But in the meantime, thank you again for listening. We'll be back again next Monday.
Bye.
Bye.